is Radio 314 on the Red Ice Radio Network.
Hi everyone, this is Lana. Thanks for tuning in. I have to say I'm really pleased that more and more libertarians are waking up to the reality of multiculturalism and the importance of European heritage. Like my guest today, who is a unique young man, his name is Augustus Sol Invictus. Many of you already know who he is. Augustus Invictus is an attorney and a community leader in Orlando, Florida. Known as a radical philosopher and infamous social critic, he is managing partner of Imperium, the law firm he founded in 2013. His father, a criminal defense attorney, instilled in him a deep respect for justice and an equally deep distrust of government. Law and justice are two totally different things, he would say, and it's our job to seek justice. While in law school, Augustus earned a fellowship at the International Human Rights Law Institute. His work centered on international criminal law and the laws of armed conflict. Here he learned well the consequences of America's own reckless foreign policy. Well, he's also a Florida Senate candidate and the only member of the Libertarian Party running to fill the seat. Check out his website, invictusforsenate.com, for more information. We'll talk about libertarian views weaved in with European values. Bottom line, you can't pursue libertarian values without European culture. I respect him all the more for being brave enough to come on the show while running for office. Augustus Sol Invictus, up next. Augustus Sol Invictus, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Lana.
Well, it's nice to hear a Southern accent, and it makes me sad because I think that Southerners are kind of melting away into this monoculture sludge. You know, after living in the South for a while, I can say it really is a cultural genocide by Northerners. So do true Southerners still exist in Florida?
I don't know. I've never really considered myself one until, I went to law school in Chicago. And I guess when I first started making speeches down here, all the Yankees started making fun of my accent. I didn't understand. I was like, I've been talking like this the entire time you've known me. What changed for you guys to start making fun of me now?
Yeah.
There are some pockets down here that are pretty rural. Orlando's been developing for a long time, so it's I wouldn't say it's cosmopolitan, but it's certainly transient. But there are certain pockets where there are still the deep South down here in Florida. Yeah.
Well, Robert E. Lee Day is tomorrow, and I hear, leftists, they're freaking out. And yet again, we hear the lie that the Civil War was about slavery and he was a traitor to the government, right?
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, can't get enough of that argument.
So tell everyone where your name comes from. I mean, we have many pagan listeners, so I'm sure they'll know.
Well, a lot of people give me flack for having chosen my name, but it actually was given to me in a religious initiation. So I'm a Thelemite. There are a lot of different rituals. It's a very complicated history behind Thelema. But the way I liken it is to Roman Catholicism, because I think that's what most people understand. So when you take First Communion, you take a different name when you're confirmed in the Catholic Church and all that. And you usually base it off of the saint that you identify with. But when you take this new Christian name, you don't change your legal name. It's something you use in your religious life. And that's the same thing with Thelema or a lot of Western esotericism. You take a new name or a motto or something that denotes your aspirations in your, your mystical path. And you don't conflate it with your mundane name because you want to keep it separate. You want to keep it pure. But my aim was to make my private and my public life one, to make my religious and my mundane life one, so that there was no division as there has historically been in occultism.
I like that. Well, I want to get into politics, but let's get this whole goat sacrifice thing out of the way. For me, it's not a problem. Sacrifice is ancient. So tell us the story and how it surfaced.
The story. Man, where to begin? I did this 30-day ritual. There's this system called Enochian magic, based off the work of John Dee.
Sure. Yeah.
He was, John Dee, the court astronomer, I believe, to Queen Elizabeth. Well, yeah, that whole system of magic and the Golden Dawn in Britain resurrected it in the late 19th century. And Aleister Crowley, who started Thelema, he took it and ran with it. So I did also, and I did this 30-day ritual, and I had all these visions during that time, and I was told to go into the wilderness, that my life was over. I needed to renounce everything I had ever done and go into the wilderness. And if I survived, you know, new things would happen, I
Hmm.
guess. So I didn't really expect to survive because I know nothing of, road trips or the wilderness. I'd never been camping before this. So I really didn't expect to make it back, especially when I got to the desert. Because I walked from here in Orlando out to the Mojave.
Mm, wow.
And yeah, and I'd never been in the desert except for some field trip in Santa Fe once. We might have been out there for an hour. Didn't really count. So when I got back to Florida and I turned out I did survive, um, yeah, I sacrificed a goat in Thanksgiving for that. I didn't think it was, you know, that crazy
No,
until it
it's
hit the
not.
news.
It's funny. Yeah, I mean, we've done lots of occult shows in our Red Ice archives before we started getting more political. We got into a lot of secret societies and symbolism and occult and magic, so none of that is weird here.
True, true. Yeah, I think the story leading up to the pilgrimage is a lot weirder than the actual sacrifice.
Well, when I heard the establishment call you a racist, neo-Nazi, pagan, occultist, southerner, I had to get you on. So we should, yeah, we should back up a little. Why did you decide to enter into politics?
Well, actually, this has been a long time coming. Yeah, a lot of people criticize me again for just coming out of nowhere and going straight for something as huge as the Senate, which was not at all the case. I was a pharmacy technician probably about a decade ago now, and I was married. We had 4 kids, um, and I was the sole breadwinner. And the DEA came in one day and shut down the pharmacy. And to make a long story short, we ended up being homeless, and I
Jeez.
couldn't live with my wife and kids for about a year. Yeah, it was a brutal time, and I swore at that time that I would destroy the DEA one day.
What
And
was
I
their
decided
reason
to.
for shutting you down?
It's one of those what they would call a pill mill. The pharmacy I worked at, they had pharmacists running it, but the prescriptions being given to us were done through a website, and you didn't have to have an in-person physical to rate your pain, I guess. I don't know. So the DEA says that, yeah, there's no law against it, but we didn't say it's okay, so therefore it's illegal, which is Soviet style law, if you ask me, but that's why they shut it down.
So then you decided I'm going to go into law school and do what?
Yeah, because I had actually dropped out of college by that time, and I'd wanted nothing to do with academia. But when that happened, I said, I'm going back to college. I'm going to law school. I'm going to be a lawyer, and I'm going to go into politics, and I'm going to shut down the DEA. So that's what started it.
Yeah,
And here we
that's
are now, all this
yeah,
time later.
that's a huge one. It's funny too how they're coming after you, and we know that the American government is like the biggest drug dealers and drug traffickers of all. You know.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. People want to think it's a libertine thing to want to end the war on drugs. Like, I want every man, woman, and child to be on crack cocaine. But when you think about it, the war on drugs is pushed by the pharmaceutical companies. And we certainly are the biggest drug dealers in the world, both of illicit drugs and quote unquote legal drugs.
Hmm.
But it's those companies that are behind this entire thing. It's those lobbyists who push for these things to be illegal so that they can sell their synthetic drugs to us at high prices, mind you.
Then they have their buddies that are bought off at the FDA that are approving all this poisonous stuff. No problem, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and they're also fast tracking it now, saying, oh, the FDA doesn't have the resources to vet all these drugs. So we'll let the pharmaceutical companies take over, and we'll let them certify to us that they've done the tests right. Yeah.
Well, in one of your talks, you said you've been hunted by the FBI, investigated by U.S. Marshals. I think you were stalked in other ways. So tell us about this.
Yeah, I know it sounds probably sounds paranoid when you put it like that, but when the letter was written back in 2013, like I said earlier, I was told to renounce my life and go out into the wilderness. So when I wrote that letter doing so, a lot of people contacted the FBI, and at least to my knowledge, that's the first time they've ever come after me, because that made it explicit. They actually wrote me and said, "Hey, we heard you disappeared. Um, So after that, they were following me for a long time. They told me they closed my file early 2014, but then when I started running for office again, they opened it because the Libertarian Party and certain people in it called the FBI again. So they reopened that case. As for the U.S. Marshals, I went to the courthouse and was stopped at security and saw my picture. I had a full page all my own on their watch list right up there at the front desk, and they said I had to be escorted through the federal courthouses now. So yeah, that's been a trip too.
Oh boy. Well, as a libertarian running for office, what are some of your complaints with the libertarian sector these days?
How much time do we have?
I know, it's a big one.
Yeah, are we talking about the party or the platform or
the party.
The party. All right. I'd say my biggest, and this is off the cuff, I didn't plan this remark here, but I'd say my biggest problem with the Libertarian Party is their insistence that we need to be mainstream and that we need to do what the Republicans and the Democrats are doing, and we need to use all their tricks, and we need to make the message bland so that we fit in and we get invited to all their things, and then people will like us, and that will grow the ranks. They don't seem to understand that just waters down your message. Yeah. It doesn't do anything constructive. So that I outright despise about the party.
It's also weak and just reactionary instead of just being strong and leading and pushing and forging a new way and being a true third party.
It is. And I think that's the problem with democracy at large. You know, we all want to water down everything so that more and more people will buy into it. It's a basic sales tactic. And that's all democracy is. It's selling things. It's not leading people.
Well, let's talk about your campaign platform. I know there's a lot of points to it, but what are your main points of focus?
I'd say my top three would be ending the drug war, as we've already discussed, implementing a non-interventionist foreign policy, and ending the financial crisis. So those are, I mean, that last one's a huge one, but as far as ending the this notion that America is the world's policeman, I only think we should go to war if it directly affects American interests. I don't think that we should be doing the bidding of Israel or of any nation or of the oil companies or any other special interest. I think if we go to war, it should be for a damn good reason. We should follow the dictates of just war. So I guess that either makes me a warmonger or an anti-Semite or isolationist. I mean, been called everything under the sun. So, but all I'm saying is I don't think we should go to war unless we have a reason to do so.
Absolutely. I think it makes a ton of sense. Well, I think that you're starting to attract, I've heard about you in some of the growing kind of pro-white, alt-right circles. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that's where the success I think is going to be in the future as things get worse for this disenfranchised majority. But how firm are you on immigration?
That's another point at which I disagree with the Libertarian Party greatly. So the official LP platform is that everything should be open borders and people should just come and go as they please. And I think that just indicates they've never read a history book, because mass immigration is the number one thing that causes the rise and fall of civilizations. So to think that we can have 20 million migrants coming in here, not assimilating, and it's not going to affect the country is just insane. So I'm actually pretty firm against mass immigration. I'm not a know-nothing or a nativist. I don't really subscribe to the idea that, you know, only white people should be coming to America. So, you know, I'm not an actual white nationalist like people say, but I also don't think that hordes of illegal Mexican immigrants or hordes of Syrian quote-unquote refugees should be coming here. It just seems suicidal.
As far as, you know, white nationalism for America, I think it's too late for America. They're already quickly destroying it. It's not going to be nationalist like Europe or mother or fatherland. I think that needs to remain white. That's our homeland. You know, it seems like everyone gets to have a country but white people, right? They're the only people that has to have diversity in their country, right? So,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, do you think that there will be a breaking up of this country? Is there going to be a territory where disenfranchised whites are going to live, a pocket? I mean, you've talked about there already being like a civil war going on, and I agree with you. But how do you think it's going to end up?
Right. Well, I've always said there were two aspects to the Civil War. And one is what we already see, where the government is clearly waging war on its own citizens as we speak right now. But I've also said that I see a great conflagration coming, and that one day there will be a great war. And I'm asked a lot, how do I think that's going to work out? And honestly, I don't know. But if I had to reason and think about it logically, I'd say it would be what Hobbes called the war of all against all, in which all of us choose our banner, and it's just pure anarchy. It's chaos. So the Muslims will be under one, the Christians under another, whites or blacks or communists, leftists, right-wing, Texans, New Hampshiremen. It will just be chaos. I mean, what lines do you draw? There's no north-south divide anymore. There's no left-right. There's no Democrat-Republican. There are no clear lines anymore. We've become so balkanized. And I think the pity of it is Pat Buchanan saw this coming, I mean, since before I was born. So, it's not like nobody saw this coming.
Yep. Well, I think it's okay to have separation. I think that's part of the system right now is like terrified. Everyone's in fear. You can't divide us. Don't divide us. We're already divided. Nature's already divided us. We have different interests. I personally feel this country is just way too big to be under one political system. I think that it would actually be good to break it up because our government is so tyrannical and has so much power that I think it would be a good thing to break up into different pockets. And then maybe there could be, gay separatists and black separatists. And maybe that would actually give us more peace. Don't you think, having some separation?
Yeah, I mean, when you're constantly rubbing your differences in each other's faces, it tends to make people hostile. So I would agree with that. I think it's just a paradigm shift. We were all brought up in these schools here in America, and everything has always been one vast unfolding of manifest destiny. We were always one country, and that is how God fated it should be. So to think that maybe that's not the case anymore, I don't know, it's kind of earth-shattering.
So do you still have faith in the Constitution? I know many on the far right, they feel, the part about we're all created equal has basically gotten us into this mess. What are your thoughts?
No, I think that leftists will use whatever language they can to get us into a mess. So I think them hooking one line from the Constitution, there was nothing we could do about that. As far as the document itself is concerned, I don't find the Constitution problematic. I think it should still stand as is. I think the thing that got us into this mess was people becoming inactive, was people not giving a damn about the direction their country was going. So it's been a long time of the banks taking over and taking over and taking over more and more territory. And the Civil War aside, I mean, that's been a long-running story now. But if people had paid attention and seen all these power grabs that were happening and seen all the ways that the government was becoming controlled by special interests and taking away the freedoms guaranteed in the Bill of Rights, and if people acted against that, I don't think there would have been this much of a controversy about the Constitution. I think it would still stand today.
So let's talk about voting and politicians, because you're running. Do you think voting truly counts, or is it rigged? And are there really sincere politicians out there?
Are there sincere politicians? Oh, man. I'm sure there's one besides me somewhere. I hope to meet him one day. I don't know. I don't know how you can be sincere and take people's money and tell them you're going to follow the program they want and write the legislation they want and take their millions of dollars and run your campaign. I don't know how you can keep your integrity doing that. So as far as voting, I think, like I said about democracy earlier, it's all just a sales tactic. I mean, we call it marketing today, but it's no different than propaganda. All you're doing is selling these candidates. I myself am nothing but a product being sold to the people of Florida to say, hey, you should buy this guy. You should vote this guy into office. Look what he's selling.
I think it's good that you're out there doing this, though, because being in alternative media, pretty much everyone I know says, don't vote. Voting is bullshit. But then it's like, okay, there's all these good people that aren't voting. What if it does have a count? Maybe we should try to vote, right? Maybe we should try and push some good men or women to get into politics, right?
Right, I agree with that. And that's actually what I've been aiming for this whole time is this demographic that says I'm too smart to get involved in politics because I know it's all corrupt and I know it's all bullshit. So I'm just going to sit this one out and not vote. And I'm going to sit over here on my mound and think that I'm the smartest man on the planet. And so if you got all those people together under one banner and said, all right, we all know that this system is corrupt and we're all going to join forces and vote against it and put someone in office who will tear it down. That's the campaign I'm actually running.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good thing you're doing. I know there was another guy who ran not too long ago. He had good things to say, but he came out blazing with "Choose, you lose." Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, that'll be a sure recipe for disaster.
So, what do you think about the response to Trump?
Who's the people?
Donald Trump. I mean, he's very popular. People are wanting that honest, just edgy, no nonsense kind of stuff. I know he's got his issues. I'm not saying he's perfect. He's got some other allegiances here. But what do you think about him?
Yeah, I know what you mean. You've got to disclaim it every time you say I like Trump. You got to say, oh well, I know that he's not the ideal guy because people will jump down your throat.
Yeah.
But I do like Trump, and I don't care who thinks otherwise. I mean, he's got a consistent message, that's for sure. And yeah, he's got a checkered background. He was a Democrat, but we've all switched parties. I mean, this isn't communist Russia we're talking about. So everybody's switched parties. Everybody's got a various things in their backgrounds. And Donald Trump's been alive a long time, and he's been a power player for a long time. So if anyone knows what he's doing, I think it's him. And I don't find any real fault in his platform except the pro-Israel nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I mean, I don't see what's wrong with him except that he doesn't stand for what the GOP wants him to stand for, and he doesn't talk the way they want him to talk.
Yep. Yeah, I think the number one issue right now that a lot of people are worried about is immigration, and they should be because demographics drastically changes your countries. I mean, just look at Europe, what's going on, living in Sweden, seeing how it's drastically changing. That's the one thing we should be voting on, and we're not voting on it. And now we need to plug that hole, and this guy is actually someone who's talking about doing that.
Yeah, it seems like an existential issue, and we could talk all day till we're blue in the face about abortion and whether it's about women's rights or the child's rights. And really, I mean, if a woman gets an abortion, it's not going to end the entire country. To me, it kills a life, but it's not going to destroy or make America. Immigration, however, will, because it's such a huge issue, and it causes the rise and fall of nations. And I don't think people have been watching history closely enough to realize what's going on here in all of the West, not just America.
Yeah, that's right. Well, we value private property, but if people travel, they'll see how the idea of private property and personal liberty, it's very much a Western idea. I've traveled around the world. I've seen for myself. I mean, how successful would libertarianism be to non-Western cultures and people flooding into America?
Right. It wouldn't be. I mean, libertarianism itself is a Western concept, pure and simple. And I don't think that libertarians seem to grasp the idea that if you let 20, 30, 40 million people come into your country and they come from communist countries or they come from Islamic theocracies, they're not going to hold your libertarian ideals, and they're going to totally disrupt your entire political system.
Yeah.
So you can have all the faith you want in human nature, and you can think that all these people are going to have the goodwill to assimilate into your libertarian values, but that's just not the fact of the matter. That's just not reality.
That's right. Well, most libertarians I find are just liberals, or they're very left-leaning. And I crack up lately because I've been hearing the term I'm a cultural libertarian used by outlets like Rebel Media. It's like, no, you're just liberals.
I don't even know what that means.
I'm like, you're just liberals who are basically too cowardly to call out how sick cultural Marxism is because you're more concerned with being liked by everyone all the time. So basically anything goes, no matter how sick, as long as you don't physically hurt someone, they think. So you're a social critic. So what do you think about our current culture?
Oh man, that is a huge question.
I know. With cultural Marxism and how sick things are, I mean, growing up, I remember my family would say, oh, fiscally conservative, socially liberal, but cultural Marxism and all its degeneracy wasn't really in full swing yet, So at some point you have to have a backbone and say, no, this is just sick and we have to crush it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I remember being in school, and it was public school, and I did hate it, and I thought I was smarter than everybody else, but I don't remember it being anything like it is today. I mean, I've got 4 kids in school right now, and the things they have to deal with are just mind-boggling to me. There is someone from the government literally coming into my son's class to make sure that his teacher is teaching what she's supposed to be teaching from Common Core and nothing else. And to me, that just blows my mind. And to think about if my sons get in a fight, they might be suspended from school. That would not have happened when I was a kid. To think that my sons are in the gifted program, and there are other people in the gifted program who don't actually belong there, but they're let in there for diversity reasons because they are racial minorities. Mm-hmm. That peeves me. I mean, especially because my kids are half Hispanic. Mm-hmm. So if they are allowed to be in there, why, in God's name, do you need more diversity? I just don't understand the lessening of standards for that.
So what do you, being a social critic, you look around, I don't know if you watch TV or just for study, just to check it out. It's just utter degeneracy all around, basically, that the left has brought. What goes through your head when you see that, especially as a father?
Oh, man. Well, first of all, I don't have a television. That is verboten. It's just not allowed in our house because television is degenerate and everything is a commercial. So everything is for sale all the time. It's like Bertolt Brecht said in his journals that in America, everything is for sale. One sells one's piss to the urinal, as it were. And I think that's accurate today as it was in Brecht's time. So I don't allow my kids to watch that kind of garbage. I've got to screen things. If my kids and I are watching a movie, it's going to be something more like 300 or Alexander, Patton. It's edgy stuff. It's adult stuff, but it's not degenerate filth. I mean, they're certainly being taken out of their comfort zone. And a lot of people probably don't think that kids should be watching something as violent as 300 or as, sexual as Alexander, but it's not SpongeBob SquarePants or Ren and Stimpy or any of the other garbage on television today.
I think it's great for little boys to watch, warrior fighting movies.
Yeah, I agree. You got to instill in them a martial spirit because the way things are going, people are scared to spank their kids anymore. They're scared to talk to them sternly. How do you raise a man if he doesn't know the first thing about discipline?
Yeah. Well, another thing I've come to despise about, free market anarchists, and I used to be one, and libertarians is their obsession with the market. It's like God to them, if the market has spoken, we obey, right? So if the market is asking for, like I just saw the other day, child sex dolls, we supply them. Or if the market calls for population replacement, we'll do it because the market has spoken. So what is your stance on the free market, which really these days is global, it's not just national?
Right. I've always had a problem with the free market approach as you've just put it. I'm a business owner. I don't want the government coming in and telling me what to do. I don't like that. I think I can manage my affairs on my own. But I'm also an attorney, so we are held to a different professional standard. We don't have to be told what to do. A lot of the times the bar will discipline us if we do something wrong, so it's a self-regulating profession. No one wants the government telling them what to do, but I got to remind libertarians all the time, back before the government got involved, there were 10-year-olds working in coal mines, and they were working in factories for 50 cents an hour. A day, rather. Yeah. There were bakers working 20-hour days and getting paid peanuts for it. And before the New Deal, that's just the way things were. And I'm not a fan of Roosevelt, but I also don't want to go back to that pure industrial anarchy that libertarians seem so enthralled with.
Yeah, I mean, I have no issues with a local free market, one that has the people's interest in mind, one that's concerned about the folk, right? A true nation that is looking out for people's best interests. That's what I think that we should be shooting for.
Yeah, and I think that's a philosophical thing about libertarianism itself, is that it's like herding cats. And everybody thinks we're all special snowflakes and individuals.
Yeah.
This talk about a folk, this talk about a people or a nation is a foreign concept, which is why the Libertarian Party, in my mind, is so ineffective, because they're so scared to organize or to say we are a group of people acting toward a common objective. I've always seen that as the major failing as far as the movement goes.
Yeah, you're right. So what are your thoughts on strong leadership? Because Europeans, we've always had kings and leaders and role models, heroes, gods and goddesses. Are you opposed to like a natural hierarchy or an aristocracy?
No, I actually preach a natural hierarchy.
Oh, nice.
And that's why I get called a fascist. And I have studied fascism a lot, but, whether it's fascist or communist or monarchist, I mean, facts are facts. Facts are stubborn things, and they don't go away. So, yeah, there is a natural hierarchy in the world, and I think that the best thing for human society is to be in line with the natural hierarchy, to be in harmony with nature. I think the Chinese, the Persians, our ancestors, they would all agree with that. I think our modern culture is an aberration from that, in that we think, well, everyone's equal. There's no such thing as hierarchy. Hierarchy is a patriarchal evil imposed upon us by, vicious men. That's more an aberration, though, because if you look to history, clearly the leftists are wrong on that point.
Yeah, it's true. Our current system is completely anti-nature. It's devoid of any biology or reality or natural law. Now they even turn their back on science, don't they? I mean, eventually it's got to backfire, though, right? Because I feel like that which is standing on something that's unnatural, that's not based in nature, is going to fail.
I don't know. I might take issue with that. And that's something I've struggled with, too, because I would like to think that sooner or later communism is going to trip up over itself and all these people are going to realize how stupid they've been. But I also think of the fact that the early Christians, they were anti-nature and they were anti-paganism. And it didn't matter how wrong they were. The fact is, they overthrew pagan Europe and it was over.
Yeah.
And they washed over it like a flood. And I see that coming with Marxism, too, if we don't actually do something to stop it.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I was talking about this yesterday, the other day with someone. It's like that true force of nature, or that, that righteous force that manifests itself to kind of fight this degeneracy, whether it's, the Civil War, whether it was Tsarist Russia fighting Bolsheviks, or whether it was World War II. It's like the good side is not winning. Like, what is going on? How do we win this thing,
Right. There's always something to be said for moral force, but at the same time, the right side doesn't always win. And I think there are a lot of Celts who would lament that Vercingetorix lost to Caesar. I mean, who's to say which side was right? But if you're a Celt, you certainly wish he would have won that and the Romans had not conquered all of Europe. So historically, I don't think that the right side is necessarily the winner. They're only the victor who writes the history books and make themselves look like they were right.
Yeah, that's a freaky thought to me, thinking, I see Europe. I don't know if you know what's going on there, how it's being destroyed, and the floodgates are open, and it gives us nightmares thinking about what's happening. Are we going to rise up and fight against this? Are Europeans going to get some balls back and actually take back their lands and fight again? I mean, I can't think of it any other way. So it just has to be that, yes, that's going to happen. Eventually we're going to fight back, right?
I hope so. And I like to think that, the Reconquista, or the French driving out the Muslims back in the Middle Ages, that might happen again. I mean, they had come into Europe before, and they had been driven out before, and they'd been there for generations. So I don't think it's too late. And in fact, I'm writing a letter. I've actually already written the letter. I'm publishing a letter on the 31st to the people of Europe in this exact vein, saying, you guys need to wake up. Your leaders are not going to help you. It's time for you to do this yourselves.
Exactly. And that's why I like what you're doing. I think it's good because people like you could also be a node point to bring other people together, to say, hey, let's organize. I think we do need some brilliant minds, not only legally speaking, but also people with a variety of talents to get together and organize and brainstorm tactics, right?
Right. I agree. Because if our only tactic is voting, I mean, we've seen where that gets us.
Yeah. So I have to bring this up. I know it's totally off topic, but I wanted to bring up Obamacare. I mean, it's an outrageous shakedown for me. You know, I go to naturopaths. I don't go to doctors who push these medications and operations. I think it's just a big business. And so for fun, the other day, I went to see what a premium would be, and it was like $500-$600. And it's like the more you make, the more they charge, and this is just total insanity. But people don't know that you can actually opt out for moral and religious reasons. So I tell people to do that. You can even join alternative healthcare sharing nonprofits. So are they just going to print more money, or is this going to fail? What do you think about Obamacare?
I think Obamacare is just one of those things like Bernie Sanders' campaign, where it's pretending to be socialist as though that's something different than the transition to communism. It's just one step closer to their end goal. So I don't know if it does fail. They're going to spin it as, well, we should have had a single payer system. We should have had full healthcare coverage the entire time. That's why it failed. So give the government more power, and that's what's going to fix it. Because that's been what they've done all along. And I think about the Federal Reserve and all the times it's failed us, and all the times it's devalued the currency, all the bank crashes it's caused. All they say is, well, the Federal Reserve needs more power. And they're going to do the same thing with Obamacare if it does fail. They're going to say, well, we should have given the government more power, made Obamacare bigger. So that's what we're going to do.
I mean,
so I have a very cynical view of Obamacare.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, it's just it outrages me that people just, they signed up for it anyway. You know, I have people that write me and say, oh my God, I can't afford it, but I don't want to get the fines. You know, why are people not just organizing? They're just so afraid to challenge the government in any way in America, which makes me just feel hopeless about this country.
Yeah, I mean, it's scary, you know, like I have to worry about that every day, like the FBI coming in my front door and hauling me off like Milligan after the Civil War. So when someone says, well, I'd rather just pay for this instead of being fined, or risk going to jail instead of dodging my taxes, or, you know, I'd hate to try LSD because, my God, that's illegal. And what if I die or go to jail? Hey, people are so pissed, scared of the government that they won't live their own lives.
Yeah.
And that's just the struggle of humanity. That's the struggle of freedom versus oppression. That's an ancient and eternal struggle, and is not common, or it's not specific, rather, to America.
Yeah, at some point you gotta make the sacrifice and fight back. Because if you don't, what about your children and your children's children?
Right.
What kind of world are they going to live in?
Yeah, that's how I try to package it for people. It's like, look, you can live a slave all you want. You can sell out. You can scrape and bow all you want. But just think about your children, and think about the example that you are setting for your children every time you lick some government man's boots. Every time you do it, your kids see that, and you are raising slaves. So hopefully that will shame some people into doing the right thing and standing up for themselves.
Yeah, so you're an attorney, an excellent one, I hear. What sorts of issues do people come to see you for? What can you help with?
I typically do criminal defense, and I try to stick with drug crimes and terrorism, or political quote-unquote crimes. But I've run the gamut. I mean, I've done robbery, theft, trafficking, anything having to do with crime, I've defended it.
Well, pretty soon it might be over political correct, statements. I mean, in Europe, they put Holocaust revisionists in prison.
I know, and it's terrifying because it's coming here, and you look at it here, and it's like no lawmaker would have the temerity to try to put something like that through Congress. But you look to the public institutions. You look at Missouri University. You look at Harvard. You look at Yale, and all these microaggressions and all these triggers and all this nonsense. That's how they're getting hate speech into this country. That's how they're making our language go away. That's how they're controlling thought now. It's not through government legislation. It's through more subtle means here. It's the same program.
It's interesting, too, because the government isn't enforcing as much censorship as these big corporations are. In order to use some of these apps or some of these services, they have clauses about hate speech and things you can't say. Have you noticed that?
Yes, I have. Yeah, and everything's about diversity. And every time that I open a journal from the legal profession, there is an article about diversity and the need for more women, more racial minorities to join the club. and we should all be ashamed of ourselves because there are still so many white men who are lawyers in America. Yeah, so it's not something I'm sheltered from.
Well, and then you're getting in trouble too because you have the fasces symbol in your logo, right? That's an ancient symbol, I know, but tell us about it.
Yeah, so when we were looking for campaign logos, I mean, I wanted the eagle, certainly. But then I looked to the banner of the Roman Senate and thought, that's perfect. That's perfect. The ancient Roman Senate, that is, not Mussolini's Senate. So it also harkens back to our own forefathers, because if you think of the Constitution and its history, and you think of the Federalist Papers and all the propaganda put out about it to pass the Constitution, have it ratified, they're talking about the Constitution being based on the ancient Roman Republic, and our entire system of government is based on the ancient Roman Republic. So I thought that would be a good way to harken back to our roots and our heritage and say, we need to reach back into history and think about where we've come from so that we can move forward. It obviously was not taken that way at all. It was just taken as, well, what a neo-Nazi fascist.
Oh, of course. Well, also, you're a white guy running in politics, so you're that right away. No matter what you say, you can say, hey, I have Hispanic kids. Doesn't matter. You're a fascist and a Nazi.
Yeah, I remember there's something, I read a lot of different eclectic things, and I think it was the Green Party's political handbook. And they call the Green Party the watermelon party because they're green on the outside but red on the inside, because they're all Marxists. And their political handbook talks about, if you're a white person, certainly a white male, then you should really consider not running. And you should really consider running someone else, supporting another candidate who happens to be a woman or a racial minority, because that's going to help our party and get the message out and be clear about what our principles are. And I read these things and just shake my head.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane.
No other people in the world talk like this, It's like you go around the world, they're not talking about diversity and letting in minority groups and pushing and propelling them. No one talks like this except for us.
No, they don't. And I could see that, I see their reasoning when it comes to things like private organizations or public housing or, restaurants or whatever. But when you're talking about running for political office, I would imagine that if you are doing that, you see yourself as something of a leader. And you are doing this because you have a vision and you want to lead people toward that vision and you want to do what is best for your country. And that is your public service. That's what you're doing with your life. So to tell someone who intends to do that, hey, you should think about backing out of this and supporting somebody else just because he's brown. Let's put him forward instead, and you can just talk through him. That's what's racist.
Oh, of course. Of course it is. And I have a feeling it's going to be Hillary Clinton that's going to get in, because it's time for a woman, right? It doesn't matter if they're good for the job, with all this feminist crap now. It's like it's going to be her.
Yeah, I do. I'm trying to hope it's not, but I fear you're right.
So have you come across any feminists on your journey yet in your campaigning?
Yeah, and they're all men. I've never been accused of sexism by a woman, except, the random woman or whatever who hates me for some reason or another personally, and it's a personal vendetta. But women never call me sexist, and minorities never call me racist. It's always white men telling me what a sexist, racist I am, and how I should be following, more liberal or Marxist principles because I'm inhuman.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've met him, and actually, there's been a back-to-back article series here from the Hampton Institute, I believe, from this guy Shane Burley, who's his first article was spot on. I mean, it was a great criticism. I thought he did a good job researching me and my positions, and then I wrote him a letter saying, hey man, I appreciated your article. Here are some things that I think would deepen your understanding because these are just wrong. And he wrote a second article just absolutely attacking me, just scholarship out the window. But his whole issue on one point is that a pagan worshiping a goddess and saying he's not sexist is like somebody saying, I have a black friend, therefore I'm not racist. And it's just the logical hoops that these people jump through to make their points and slander a person are just outrageous.
Oh, I know. I mean, there's a sector of our own people who are mentally sick. Because let's face it, like most of these problems wouldn't be around if it weren't for some of our own white folks that are doing this, you know? I mean, I don't want to live with them either. So, I mean, what is the solution with some of these suicidal lefties? I mean, you as a politician, if you could make peace somehow, I mean, how would you live with some of these people? Because they're just insane.
Well, it actually reminds me, in this whole situation with these articles I was just talking about, the whole situation reminds me of Hitler talking in Mein Kampf, and it's in a chapter called Revolution, about a leader who had extended his hand to the Marxists, trying to make peace with them. And of course, he says, you know, they were taking the imperial hand in one while reaching for the dagger with the other. And he says, scoundrels have no honor. And that's all I think about when I think of peace with Marxists anymore.
Yeah, it's true. We're going to have to find a way to deal with them somehow and cut them off and separate from them. Yeah.
I agree. They have no problem telling us we should hang from lampposts and they should wipe out our bloodlines because we're evil, inhuman racists. So I'm getting to the point where I'm really tired of extending the olive branch.
I agree. I'm with you there. So how's your campaigning going? What's happening next?
Well, I'm, like I said, publishing that letter to the people of Europe at the end of the month. And then starting mid-February, I'm going to be traveling for the rest of the year making speeches. So the first stop will be in Vancouver in British Columbia. Then we're going down to Portland and then back up to Vancouver and Washington. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what that speech is for, but I think that'll be explosive. But then we'll be going,
can't say more? Can't say more?
Well, I might be able to say it has something to do with the resurrection of the American front.
Nice.
So after that, you know, there's a lot of different speaking engagements, whether in Tennessee or Atlanta, New York City. So we've just got a full speaking schedule all year.
And how's the turnout been?
I mean, you know, for a third party candidate, I'd say turnout's been pretty well. And we're certainly not packing stadiums like Marco Rubio, but yeah, I'd say 20 to 30 people showing up to one of my little speeches is success.
Well, for our Florida listeners, tell them, you know, when can they get out and vote for you?
August 30th is going to be the primary here in Florida. So if you are a Florida citizen and are registered with the Libertarian Party, or if you're registered to vote as a Libertarian, excuse me, you don't need to register for the Libertarian Party. Please don't think I'm telling you that. But you can vote in the primaries on August 30th, and then the election itself is in November, assuming I win that primary, which I am assuming.
Well, I hope that some of our alternative media people get out and support you because, like I said, there's a lot of good people who aren't voting. So maybe this year we should try an experiment and actually vote for some people and see where it gets us, huh? If anything.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth a try. What the hell? Might as well shoot that ballot in there and see what happens.
Exactly. Well, please share your website details and let us know of any upcoming news.
Sure. The website is invictusforsenate.com. You can, you know, make donations, fingers crossed, or you can buy T-shirts or read the speeches or whatever you want to do on there. As far as what's coming up, we're just doing some speeches. We've got the ballot access deadline on May 2nd, so we're trying to raise money before then. And otherwise, just hitting the campaign trail.
Cool. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it and keep up the good work.
Oh, thank you, Lana. It's been a pleasure.
So if you're in Florida, vote for the guy. Geez, I can't remember when I voted last, maybe when I was 21, but this year I plan to give it a shot if Trump gets in because at least he might build a wall and that's something. It might be down to Trump versus Hillary, and if so, we can be sure the beast Hillary will get in and have her time to ravage the nation. But at this point, it's going down anyway, so let's encourage the fall. The quicker, the better. I noticed there's many fragmented groups of people who are kind of on the right, people on the far right, people in the center, people who go left and right, and people who oppose leftists but refuse to claim a label. There's many people who oppose leftist insanity, but they are too damn individualistic or egotistical to unify into a larger group for the bigger picture as a strategic move. Think of the White Army in Russia, or the White Movement, also known as the White Guard or the Whites, a confederation of various groups who had one thing in common. They were anti-communist. Well, these different groups joined forces and fought the Bolsheviks in the Russian Civil War. They all had one imminent threat they agreed upon: lefties. They were able to put aside their differences and not argue over things they could fight over later, because they had a huge looming threat in common: communism. Well, here we are again. We need a white army 2.0, a white guard, literally. Even the name is still perfect. Right now, we don't have a large umbrella organization to bring in the little fragmented groups, but I think it's going to take shape. It's already begun. We're going to have to become a pan-European international political group at some point, an organization with backing and dedicated workers and leaders. A unified group with a simplified, boiled-down agreement to bring in all the various little groups, because on our own, thinking too specifically, we can't crush the orc army of the left. There's a lot we can sort out later. We're Europeans, we solve problems. Alt-right, pro-white, nationalist, national socialist, might is right, libertarian, Christian, pagan, orthodox, you know the combos. At some point, these groups will need to become allies with an agreement. That's why I still invite guests who I share commonalities with, although not entirely. Well, thank you all for listening. If you want to help support this show, you can send a PayPal donation to lana@redicecreations.com or consider signing up for a Red Ice membership. We have some fun plans this year, and your support will help make it happen. Also, I have a new video coming out, so look out for it.